All right, guys, I just want to welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, I'll be doing a preview and prediction for a crucial contest in the ACC for Week 13. Yellow Jackets, 2.5-point home favorites. 61.5 is the total, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN from Atlanta, Georgia. Getting things started with that Pitt offense against the Georgia Tech defense. Coming into the week, Pat Narduzzi had said that they can lose that game by 100, and it doesn't matter as long as they win the next two. And technically, he's right. Obviously, it's probably not the greatest thing to say when you're trying to set a precedent for your team's success. Nonetheless, that was a tough game against Notre Dame. They ended up losing in blowout fashion at home. And the offense was abysmal. That's a big reason why Mason Heinchel coming into the game. He'd been on a heater, right? This is a guy who they inserted into the lineup early October, and he's been great for this team. I think he's been very impressive. He's been playing with a lot of juice, has a really nice arm, can do some things with his mobility as well. This is a guy putting up 260 yards per game. He's got 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The biggest problem with him, and you saw it against Notre Dame, is he's still young, right? Still telegraphing a lot of balls, still just staring down number one options, not making the greatest of decisions. Completed 48% for only 126. They were 0 for 11 on third down. It was just a tough afternoon overall. They were able to put 15 points on the board. They had a garbage time score there, a couple points before halftime as well. But it was just a disaster for this Pitt offense. I was very disappointed, and a big reason for that is this pass game was just not able to create any separation. Notre Dame was just playing lock up man coverage on them most of the afternoon, and they could not separate one bit. Guys like Kenny Johnson, Poppy Williams, these are two good receivers. They have 540 yards combined, or each, that is, combined 10 touchdowns. Katarius Hicks is a solid number three, 353 yards and 4 scores. And then Desmond Reed, he ended up, being their top receiver. He's a great playmaker for them. The run game for Pitt this year has not been very good, even with Reed at the helm. I know he's been struggling with health, and he's been a great pass catcher for him, but when it comes to running the football, they've just not been very good. Maybe a little bit easier in this matchup, but it's been a problem for them in conference play. Really, against anybody, they've failed to top 200 yards once this year. They've only topped 150 a couple of different times. So it's just been a rough going for this rushing attack. Jacarian Turner, the freshman's been leading the way, though, 414 and 6 scores. And then Desiree does provide that explosiveness for you, but it's really been hard to get him going. And then Jules Goff's also been an impressive freshman. So I think this is a respectable running back room, but it's really going to be Reed getting a lot of touches. And I think here against the Georgia Tech defense, it's honestly been lackluster and very disappointing in its own right. Could be a little bit more likely to give up some big plays on the ground. I think Pitt is going to look to have some balance in this game, and that's what I expect from the Panthers. This is a team that I think can throw the football with Heinchel, and I think they can be able to run the football against weaker opponents because it is a talented group. Biggest problem for them is their offensive line. It's just really not that good. Kendall Stanley at left tackle is a respectable player. Left guard has been, a pretty stable position for him with a couple different guys playing. Lyndon Cooper is a nice veteran center, but he's really struggled in pass protection. B.J. Williams has been good, but not great. And then over at right tackle, I think Ryan Baer, he's a really good player in run blocking, but in pass protection, he's a guy that usually gets beat up a good bit. It's just not that good of an offensive line. Good news is they're going to be facing a team that doesn't possess a great pass rush. Jordan Van Den Berg, a defensive tackle, and Akivo Stone, these are some pretty good players for them. When it comes to size on the interior, they lead the way. So does Amontre Bradford, who's really stepped up. But it's just not a good pass rush in terms of outside edge pressure. All the sacks have really come from either the linebackers or defensive tackles. That's obviously not great, right? So this is a group that doesn't have much when it comes to outside pass rushing to really take advantage of maybe some weaker tackles for Pittsburgh. I think it's a big reason why you've seen Georgia Tech really struggle this year. It really seems like, regardless of the opponent, they've just been awful. I picked them to survive against NC State, and it was a trap game. They got blown out pretty much in that one, giving up almost 600 yards of offense. Boston College, even with a week off, also had 537 yards of offense against Duke early in that game, mainly in the first half. They were getting throttled in the secondary before turning it up late. They're also forced a big turnover at one point in that game. The Georgia Tech defense has really just been disappointing. So I've really seen them struggle to put away opponents. And this is not an offense that's going to be easy by any means. I know Notre Dame made it look simple, but that's the Irish, right? And for Pittsburgh, I still think that Heinchel is a good quarterback. I think they can have opportunities in the run game. And in downfield passing, I think that they're going to have plenty of opportunities as well to cook versus a secondary that's not been very good. 300-plus yards allowed in 3 of the last 4 games. Giant red flag. They're not forcing many turnovers with 2 interceptions. And again, it's been a disappointing effort from me. I thought this is a group that was respectable last year, and I thought they would improve just a little bit. I didn't think they'd be great, but I thought they'd be good, and I thought they'd be stable. Zach Tobe's been underwhelming at corner. Rodney Shelley, Amari Harvey when they're on the field. Daquan White, it's just been disappointing, right? And you look at the safeties, Clayton Powell-Lee, Omar Daniels. Daniels has been really sturdy in coverage. Lee has been terrible. He's been really good against the run, though, but you're talking about a lot of inconsistencies. I think Jai Gilmore's probably been your best player in the back end. He's a mainstay in the slot. I do think this is a very good linebacking group that you're going to look to for a lot of big plays when you need them. EJ Lightsey, not very good in coverage, but he's a nice tackler, nice run defender. Kyle Eifert, he's their alpha. Cayman Spalding, he's also having a great year against the run. I think Taj Butler is also really good as well. He's been pretty stable when it comes to giving them some nice reps with the twos. So great linebacking group for Georgia Tech. The defensive line, they have some nice players I alluded to, but again, that lack of pass rush mixed with secondary that can't really make many plays. It's been a disaster for them. So I think Pittsburgh is definitely going to have a pretty strong afternoon through the air with balance overall for their offense. Looking at the other side of things, Georgia Tech, their own offense, looking to counter against a solid Pittsburgh defense. Coming off a tough afternoon again against the Irish. I thought they'd play a little bit better than they did. Jeremiah Love had pretty much an untouched touchdown, untouched for a touchdown in the first half. They ended up giving a $175 in total. It wasn't great when it came to slowing down the run. Gave up 175 in that game. And they've been around that area a couple times this year. 4 times they've given up 160 plus rushing, but have not given up 180 in a contest. So it's a group that can come around, and they're not just going to get completely blitzed on the ground. Rasheem Biles, 10.5 TFL, him coming back against the Irish was great. Jimmy Scott, a leader on the defensive line for them. Kyle Lewis, a great playmaking linebacker. He's one of the best in the country at his position. 57 tackles, 6.5 TFL. He's 5 plays on the ball as well. So that's a very good linebacker. He plays a lot of slot for them as well. It's a nice linebacking group for Pitt. I mean, these guys are phenomenal. Braylon Lovelace as well. Another one of those guys you can point to be a playmaker. Very well coached group. They're all really good against the run. Lewis, aforementioned beast in coverage. Love what they provide there. The defensive line, probably not the strongest on the interior, but Scott coming off the edge along with Isaiah Neal, I think gives them a respectable duo. I think Sean Fitzsimmons is solid, Nick James as well. So it's a respectable group. It's got some rotation. And I think you're going to have to find some pass rush here, but more importantly against Georgia Tech, when you're playing an offense that operates the way that this one does under offensive coordinator Buster Faulkner, you're going to have to scheme up ways to keep things within the tackles, because when they come to running the football, it's a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of motion, a lot of QB keepers. They try to get him to the edge a lot, that being Haynes King, who's having an elite year, 24 total touchdowns. This is a guy that's putting up 341 yards of offense per contest, which is pretty absurd. Protects the football. He's efficient through the air. This is just an offense that's so well coached, and the offensive play calling is a big reason for that. They always keep you off balance. They're always on schedule. I think the running back duo is really, really good. Malachi Hosley, Jamal Haynes. Haynes has had a disappointing season. I mean, he's just not been able to rip off explosive runs at all this year. And his production the last couple of weeks, over the last month, has been terrible. He hasn't hit over 30 yards once. He only has 100-yard game of the year. 100 against Temple, and he had 90 against Gardner-Webb. He's been just awful this year for Georgia Tech, quite frankly. And Hosley, he's been a lot better. 625 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's going to be the main guy, I think, getting the touches, because Haynes is just not cutting it. And I don't know really what the issue is with him this season. Hosley, though, can help provide a solid 1-2 punch if Haynes is playing his best ball. But, we're 10 games into the year. Haven't seen much from him. But Haynes King, he's going to be the leader here with 14 rushing touchdowns, 807 yards on the ground. He's going to get, 15 to 20 carries per contest. He's a physical guy, and it's going to be up to Pitt that, not only be sound in tackling, but when you come to making plays in short yardage as well, and just having overall eye discipline, because they'll do that a lot where they do those jet sweeps and they hand it to whoever, or, that motion will be utilized to get King downhill. So it's just so tough to defend this scheme. I love watching them play. I think Georgia Tech, they're really good at owning time of possession and just keeping you on your heels. They have nice receivers. Eric Rivers, a nice speedster. Isaiah Canyon, he's been a nice, reliable player for him this year, 359 yards. And then Malik Rutherford's only got 323. But these are all guys who step up in big-time games like this one. 121 yards against Boston College, a season high for Rutherford. So it's a different guy every week for them in this receiving group. I even think Bailey Stockton, who's got 17 receptions on the year, occasionally makes a big play. So it's a nice group for them. I know he hasn't played the last couple games. Not sure his status, but it's just an example of how many different ball players they have that can make an impact. Overall for the run game, 224 yards per game. Pittsburgh, I still think this is a respectable run defense. They've had some issues, and even against the Irish, it wasn't their best showing. But I think I'm more so worried about how their secondary is going to play, especially if Georgia Tech is staying ahead of the sticks and they're running the football quite well. I think Sean Lee's a solid corner. Rashad Battle as well. Shadarian Harrison. He's good against the run, but not good in coverage, and you're going to need those corners to step up out there towards the perimeter. So he's going to play a lot of reps in this game because he does have those skills. I think Javon McIntyre as a safety who's really been struggling this year in all regards. Cruz Brookins is a phenomenal player for this defense. defense. He's been really good against the run this year, really good in coverage. Biggest problem for him is he's still injured. He was on the field for warm-ups, though, against Notre Dame, so I think he'll be good in the go in this one. They're going to really need him because he's a nice tone setter in the back end for the secondary. Does a little bit of everything just at such a high tune for them. So Brookins coming back should definitely help elevate this defense a bit. I think they're just great overall making plays. Pittsburgh can really get into the backfield with these linebackers, some nice, tough, physical football players. And I think this pass rush as well, with their 25 sacks, they're pretty deep when it comes to that group. And I think it's going to be tough for them because they've really beat up on some of the weaker opponents. And I think this is a pretty good pass rush, for or what is that offensive line for Georgia Tech. It's a veteran group. They're physical. They all fit the scheme very well, and that's why they're so successful. Ethan McKinney at left tackle, Joe Facili at left guard. You have Harrison Moore, who's played at center and left guard. He's also been battling some injuries. Right guard, though, Keelan Rutledge is a stud. And then over at right tackle, Malachi Carney's having a great year. So this is a really good offensive line. In terms of drop back passing, though, if you can force Georgia Tech to do that often, you're going to have a great shot at winning this game because that's not really what they're built to do. They're not comfortable in that regard. Their pass game really comes from what they do running the football. And if you can put them in some peril, you're going to have a great shot of, knocking this team off. NC State, they still ran for 151 yards, but that, was almost a season low. Clemson held them to 147. That was a game that could have went either way, right? So you're going to be able to beat this team if you can limit their run game. And even Wake Forest, who nearly beat them, held them to under 200 yards and really stifled them for most of that game. So that's a theme with Georgia Tech. If you can slow down this run game just a little bit, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to have a great shot of winning. And if you can man up in the red zone, you're obviously going to have a great day. Moving to the final thoughts on the prediction. I think Georgia Tech's going to win this game. I'm going to stick with them. I know their defense has just been sluggish, and I just know it's not that great. But I feel like they turn up for these big-time games. They like to drag their feet against the likes of, NC State, Boston College, Wake Forest. But they're going to line up and they're going to play football against the tougher opponents, and they're going to do it very well. You've seen them do that a lot last year, and I know that hasn't exactly been the theme this year. As they played a lot of close games against some teams that really aren't all that good, especially Boston College, who's now 1-10. But I've just seen this team over the last couple years now under Brent Key. They're going to be ready and they're going to be amped up for it's a big time game because they're looking to make the college football playoff. They can win this game. They're going to be staring down the barrel of an ACC championship game appearance, and that means a lot for this program. So I am going to anticipate them being fully prepared for this one. They're going to play some of their best football, maybe not on the defensive side, but I think the offense is going to do their thing, and their defense will make some stops to allow them to pull away here. For only a 4-point victory, I think the best bet for Georgia Tech is -2.5. You only need 3 points, right? I know that's kind of been a tough ask with some of these scores you've seen from the Yellow Jackets as of late. But again, I'm going to stick with them to get the job done with, knowing and keeping that in mind that Buster Faulkner is a great offensive coordinator. I think they'll be amped up for this one, and they're going to play some of their best ball on Saturday. So that's going to be it for today's episode. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.